Deadlock is a game that has been innovating on the MOBA and hero shooter genres for well over a year now, and it's done a lot right to draw in a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people on Steam, despite technically not even being out yet. And while a lot of videos like to focus on the gameplay and hero design aspects of Deadlock, today I want to focus on something that kind of slips under the radar but is still really important to how the game feels to play, and that is the queue system, both in terms of how team comps are created and how ranked works in this game, because well, Deadlock does things different to other hero shooters and MOBAs on the market, and it certainly has some benefits, but there are also some things that kind of suck about this system that I want to criticize in this video, and at the end of the video I want to offer what my ideal queue system would be for Deadlock in the future. So let's discuss the first problem I have with the queue system, which is how team comps are actually created. So if you actually go to queue for a match here, well, you click on Deadlock, and then it puts you on this screen where you choose your character before ever stepping foot in a real lobby. And this is to ensure that you are very, very likely to get the character that you actually want to queue for. If I set Calico here to high priority, there is a more than 90% chance that I will get this character. But it is far from a perfect system. First of all, just a quick nitpick that I actually mentioned in my UI video, it doesn't actually make it clear that you can set a hero to high priority, and so a lot of new players to this game don't even realize that you can set a hero to high priority, because if you just look at the screen right now, there's nothing that tells you can do that. You have to go and hover over a character, but nope, not a character that's unselected like Doorman here. It doesn't tell you anything about the priority system here. No, you have to hover over a character that you've already selected to finally realize that you can right-click to make priority, and then make high priority. It's not a very good UI design. They need to add something somewhere that tells you how to do that. But anyways, the major problem I actually wanted to discuss in this video is that you don't get to choose your team comp at all if you're just queuing for regular matchmaking. There's no specific game mode or anything like that that allows you to decide who is on your team and allow you to draft characters that might be able to counter the heroes picked on the enemy team. Now, Deadlock is very unique in that it is a classless game, and every character is able to stand on pretty even footing with every other hero in the game. Even the more supportive type characters are able to do very, very well in Deadlock on these random team comps, but there are still some team comps that are kind of just blatantly overpowered and disgusting, and nobody really enjoys fighting. For example, if you have a team comp with both Lash and Dynamo on it, you're gonna struggle to lose that game, because these guys have one of the most overpowered ultimate combos in the entire game, and their team fight pressure is just going to be ridiculous. It's not impossible to win against these team comps, but it just feels bad when you don't have the agency to decide whether you create a team comp with these, or whether you're able to counter draft characters that are good against these heroes. And there are many more team comps that feel this way, but I can't really list them all in this video, and that's not really the point. The point is, I come from the hero shooter genre. I've played a lot of Paladins, I've played Overwatch, and I dabbled in Marvel Rivals for 2 seconds, and in all of those games you get to choose your team comp and coordinate with your team to decide who you think would be best to play on your team, and, especially in the case of Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, you get to counter draft the characters that you think would work best against the heroes on the enemy team. But that sort of strategic thinking is completely absent in Deadlock. Apart from pro play, which just takes place in custom matches, it is completely separate from 99.9% of the player base. Now, those systems aren't perfect either, because in Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, Paladins, and every other hero shooter out there, when you load up into a random match and you have to draft with the people on your team, if you guys aren't communicating well, then you're not going to create a very good draft anyways, and also, there's actually a higher chance that you won't get the character that you want, because someone might insta-lock them first, or you might feel pressured into playing a role that you don't want to play. Now, that sort of role pressuring wouldn't exist to nearly the same extent in Deadlock, because again, there are no designated roles. But still, if you load into a match and people are choosing characters one by one, then someone's probably just going to steal your Lash, and you're going to be pissed, and then you're going to ban Bebop, and it's all just going to be a mess, or something to that effect. And so, this system does offer a way to at least give you a higher chance to get the character that you want, but it's still not perfect at that anyways, and I have had so many instances, especially recently, where I have not gotten the character that I wanted to play, and that's just really frustrating. And so there is a really good case for a draft system to be implemented, because even though there would be more instances where you don't get to play the character that you actually wanted, you would at least be able to have more strategic depth with the team comps that you have, and you'd be able to have another layer of counterplay towards just countering the enemies. Of course, one more thing to consider with a draft phase is the casual audience of Deadlock, and a lot of casual players probably wouldn't have the appetite for sitting through a long drafting phase where players are going back and forth picking and banning heroes. It is something that is more suitable for the ranked audience of Deadlock, which leads me into my next point. There is no dedicated casual or ranked mode in Deadlock. You have the regular Deadlock game mode, which kind of acts as this game's ranked now, because the other option is Street Brawl, which is an entirely different game mode that does not affect your rank in any way. So this is kind of the casual mode, but the one big glaring problem here is that there's no way to play the regular Deadlock game mode without it affecting your rank. Unless you want to play a bot match, but like, come on, those are boring. So there is a very big gap that needs to be filled here, and this does actually matter quite a lot. The reason why casual and ranked is split into different queues in most other games is because they appeal to two different demographics. Casual players don't want to worry about sweats concerned with their rank in their matches, and they don't want the game constantly reminding them that they're ranking up and down. They just want to play to have a good time and not be too competitive. But then for ranked players, they don't want to worry about silly players like me doing stupid builds and not tryharding as hard in their games. So having both casual and ranked in one game mode has a little bit of tension going on there between those two demographics having to play the game in the same place. Deadlock should and probably will have these two modes separated at some point down the line, but it is worth bringing up nonetheless, and it's also worth mentioning the upsides of having this system in place, because there are actually some benefits that I want to discuss. First of all, one unique perk of ranked and casual being the same game mode in this game is that ranking up and down is much more accessible for most players. A lot of players are intimidated by a dedicated ranked mode because they're worried about sweating, tryharding, and toxicity, but well, because Deadlock's main game mode is also its ranked mode, it's a lot more relaxed by comparison. And I actually was one of those people where I would get a little intimidated and scared by playing ranked in Overwatch or Paladins or whatever, because it's like, ooh, I gotta put my tryhard britches on, and it kind of steered me away from the game mode, even though in actuality, while I do need to try, I don't need to take it that seriously. It just, I don't know, it affects the mindset in an interesting way, and I know I'm not the only person who feels this way about ranked modes, or felt this way at one point in my life. Deadlock having ranked be just the game mode that you play actually made me a lot more open to playing ranked in other games just in general. Also, in a dedicated ranked mode, toxicity is much more prevalent, because people feel the need to try hard for their precious elo, and so they're more likely to snap at other people and experience all the negative feelings of having high cortisol. We've all seen those compilations of people absolutely crashing out and losing their minds in Overwatch ranked, Marvel Rivals ranked, all those other ranked modes in other various games, and well, people are still a little toxic in Deadlock. Let's not pretend like toxicity is just completely not an issue in this game. But it is mitigated by the fact that, well, everyone's just kind of playing the same game mode. And one objectively negative thing about splitting the two game modes is that matchmaking likely would be worse in some ways. As I mentioned in my matchmaking video, when you split up queues, you subdivide the population and give the matchmaking pool fewer players to work with, and the fewer players there are, the worse the matchmaking usually is. This might not be as bad as some other ways of splitting up the queues, because all the people who want to try hard are going to queue for ranked, and so that'll likely offset the population issue of splitting those two modes. But it is still something to think about. But back to the point about toxicity, the lack of a draft phase is also something that kind of reduces toxicity in Deadlock, because there is no situation where someone deliberately steals your hero, or someone on your team picks the wrong hero. Like, for example, not picking a support in Paladins, or not picking the right tank in Overwatch, or anything like that. You don't ever run into issues like that in Deadlock, and it's really nice not having to blame anyone for their hero choices, or having to blame the support, or anything like that. If you end up not getting the hero you want, that's not the fault of anyone in the match, that's just the fault of the matchmaking algorithm, and it's much more healthy to be mad at that than to start ripping into another person on the internet because they've selected the character that you wanted to play. So, what should Deadlock do in the future? How would I implement the perfect queue system into this game? Well, I do think that splitting the queues into a casual and ranked mode is an inevitability, and it's definitely for the best. In casual mode, I actually think that the hero select system we have right now is probably the best way to do it, just because casual players don't really want to have to think about team drafts too much, and for the most part, the way that team comps are done in Deadlock right now is not bad in regards to just your average Randy's experience. It's really in those more competitive settings at high ranked, or just ranked in general where people want to try hard, where you need one of those draft phases. And so in the ranked game mode, that's where I would implement a draft where people go back and forth selecting and banning different heroes. It would add an extra layer of strategy and depth to the people who really care about their rank and want to rank up. It would prioritize the team comp over individual hero selections, whereas in casual, the individual hero selections would be prioritized over the team comp. It's a pretty simple solution, but I do think it would be really effective, because at the end of the day, there are some bad things about Deadlock's queue system right now for sure, but it's not without its benefits either, and there are some things that I really appreciate about it. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of just thinking that Deadlock's queue system right now is awful because you can't draft heroes or whatever, and I mean, yeah, it is a problem for some people in some situations, but there are some definite benefits too. But anyways, let me know what you think about Deadlock's queue system in the comments section down below. Do you agree with my analysis, or do you think I missed something? While you're down there, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos from me. And also, if you really want to support my content and get something back for it, then consider joining the memberships program down below. You can get a bunch of emojis, badges, other stuff to use in the streams. You also get some perks on the Discord server too, so it's really just a great time. I would really appreciate it if you would check that out. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.